Welcome. My name is Robbie. I use he, him pronouns. I'm wearing a t-shirt because it's 100 degrees in my apartment. Usually don't show up so casual, but I've got this like curly orange hair for those of you who can't see me. I'm in my very hot apartment with some books and pictures behind me. And closed captioning is enabled and can be turned on at the bottom of your Zoom. At Inform Your Community, we offer events that combine really important, impactful information with having fun. So we're really happy that you're here with us today. Of course, you can find us at informyourcommunity.org. You can find social media links on the bottom. We've got our mailing list there. There's a donate link there. And of course, we rely on donations. We're a nonprofit. If you're watching a recording of this video, please take a moment to like our video and subscribe to our channel. We're here today to talk about a really important, timely, because it's so cold and it's so hot in here, topic of homelessness or houselessness. And Stacy is going to guide us through a wonderful craft, hopefully to help folks stay warm. She'll tell us more about that. But for now, homelessness is an important topic for us to discuss today. There are 580,000 people who are homeless in the US. In New York City alone, there are 21,000 homeless children. These are estimates, of course, but the numbers are, they're upsetting. And of course, those of us in New York City, we see it, right? We see it every day and it's upsetting. And often we feel helpless, right? So we have with us today our facilitator, Mark Monroe. He's a site supervisor at Urban Pathways. Hi, Mark. Welcome.
How you doing today?
Good. It's so good to see you. And yeah, please introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've worked in this kind of work and a little of your background.
Okay. So my name is Mark Monroe. My pronouns are he and him. So I've been working with the homeless population for maybe a little bit over 8 years. I started with a homeless organization in Penn Station, and then I moved on to another homeless organization, and we work out at JFK. And we pretty much do like homeless outreach, and we go around to the JFK airport, where there is a pretty large homeless population. And we kind of just outreach to them, get to know their needs. And we offer them services such as shelter services, or let's say if they need to go to a detox, or sometimes even like a hospital for some mental evaluations.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're honored to have you.
Thank you.
We're also grateful to have Tyler helping us with tech issues, and they're going to be monitoring the chat. Hi, Tyler. And if you have any questions throughout the craft or about the topic, please unmute yourself. You can write in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. And we'd love to see your work in progress too. So if you're in the middle of your thing and it's looking great or looking funky, whatever, show us. Bring it up to your camera if you want. So Stacy's going to help us with our craft. Welcome, Stacy. Hi, Stacy. It's good to see you.
Hello, Robbie. Hello, Tyler. Hello, Mark. And hello, everybody who's here. I'm so excited to see some names I know, some names I don't know. And I send like warm Happy New Year wishes to everyone. I don't think it's too late for us to still send Happy New Year wishes. So I am so excited to be here. My pronouns are she, her, and I am wearing a yellow shirt. And I have salt and pepper hair, although I recently dyed it. So it's looking slightly less salt and pepper, but I don't know what color you would call it, to tell you the truth. Yeah, it's short hair with a black background. And so I wanted to let you know about what craft we have and why we picked this craft. And really it came down to this idea of home, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. What we're going to do today is a finger knitting technique. Once you get started on it, we're not going to be able to finish the project today, and we don't have enough yarn for that. But once we are able to learn the technique, you'll be able to pick up some yarn and pick up some yarn and do it once you know the technique, and you'll have the video that you'll get sent afterwards that we'll be able to, you'll be able to follow along with later. So right now it's just about learning the technique, and making the scarf comes later, but we're going to you'll end up with a very interesting finished product at the end. I want to warn you, there's a lot of awkwardness in the hand movements with this particular craft. It is not like your fingers don't normally go in these directions and do these things. So once you're comfortable with the motion, it will feel a lot better. Just keep in mind, you don't have to memorize what we're doing today. Just give it a try and go for it. If you get frustrated, just set it down, start again. Pretty much the entire time we'll be doing this craft, it's the same exact motion. So you can pick it up, tear it apart, pick it up again as you need to until you're comfortable with the motion of it. I chose this craft because of the symbolism I associate with the scarf. I think many of us have this kind of similar symbolism. Practically speaking, when I think of scarf, I think of like something that keeps me warm and it protects me. But I also think of scarves as cozy. And we can picture ourselves. I can certainly picture myself when I'm wearing a scarf. You put your scarf on, right? You're all cozy. I can picture myself near a fireplace. So it has this kind of symbolism. Mm-hmm. And when we think of home, I think it has that same two meanings, right? On the one hand, it's very practical. It's a shelter. On the other hand, it's a place where we have warmth in a more metaphorical, symbolic way of like, it's cozy, it makes us happy. We have our personal items there. So in some ways, calling somebody homeless is a kind of a bit of a misnomer, because really they're houseless, right? They're unhoused. That's really the issue with people who are homeless. It's the shelter that's the issue, right? And really homeless people, you might even have seen homeless people, like some folks have, I've seen people with shopping carts of their stuff that are, is valuable to them, going around with it. So their home is kind of where they are. Some people say home is where the heart is, but it's really the shelter that's the issue.
Mm-hmm. And also homeless implies a lack of permanent housing, but the word unsheltered really has like a broader meaning. Sometimes we think of people, there are people that their homelessness is temporary. So similar to like let's say the Google employees that just got laid off. Like they just laid off like 12,000 employees. And a lot of us are living like paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of us are a paycheck away from being homeless. So if we think about that, those people may be affected by a period of homelessness.
Right. It's a temporary thing. That's an excellent point. And actually 40% of those who are in shelters and who are unsheltered and without a home held a job in the last year, which is just, when you think about that statistic, right? It really amplifies that idea that it's, there is such a thing as like homelessness being a temporary state. Yeah, wow, really, really important stuff. And we tend to think of it as more like a permanent situation. So I don't usually myself think of it as this kind of temporary state. While we're going to get to talk more about this and other topics related to people who are homeless, but I'm wondering if we should get started on the craft. What do you think, Mark?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you want to get started? Okay, so first thing I'm going to tell you is that we have a craft kit, but I have to say this is the most boring craft kit we've ever sent. I almost felt bad sending it. I'm like, we're literally just sending some yarn. That is this craft kit. Those of you who've come to our events before, some of our events, we have these really intricate crafts. If you get a chance to come to our Day of the Dead event, it was like, there was like 30 pieces to it. It was like a really intricate project, but this one, it's more about the technique. And so just having the yarn is the way to go. And, could we have sent you, more yarn or different varieties of yarn? Like, I suppose we could have, but yarn is such a personal thing. And I want to share, right? Like, so there's this yarn that I'm wearing on my neck right now. Some of you might have gotten this color yarn or something like this, kind of just a single color. But also yarns just come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. So for example, I'm not sure, let me see if I can get you to see it a little bit more focused. This yarn, it's just a black yarn, but it actually has multiple threads going through it. So some of it's thicker than other parts of it. Other yarns come in different colors with different varieties. So for example, here's one, the texture is completely different. It's like curly texture, whereas this one, we have many colors in it. So there's fluffy yarns. There's so many different types of yarns that if we gave you a whole skein of yarn, and that's what one of these containers of yarn is called. Container is not quite the right word, but one of these holders of yarn, let's call it, is a skein. That's what it's called. And you're going to want to pick out your own, right? Like once you figure out you like this craft, you want to do this, you want to make a scarf, you're going to want to actually pick out your own yarn. It's so much fun. There's so many varieties of things that you can, types of yarn that you can pick out. So had we sent you like a whole bunch of yarn, we never would have given you the joy that you're going to get from getting it yourself, because it's just such a fun thing to do. If you don't have our kit, so our kit had literally just some yarn in it. That was it. The simplest kit we've ever sent out. Additionally, in this kit, so we have the yarn, but additionally in this kit, you had our business card, for example. We always have a nice little saying on the back of it. You also received in our kit a flyer about what we do. You received some information about the event tonight, just as a reminder, and our infographic. You're going to be getting that same homelessness infographic after the event as well. So what I'd ask for the folks who didn't get our kit is start looking around your house and seeing if you can find something you can use for the event today. So specifically, obviously easiest is if you have some yarn. That's great from any other project maybe you have lying around. Not everybody has that though. So if you don't have yarn lying around, then I'll give you some alternatives. And really, since it's about the technique, you can use kind of anything that is in this shape, right? So if you have shoelaces, if you have a pair of shoelaces, that might give you the length, some longer shoelaces to get you started at least on this. If you have ribbon, thin ribbon, you can use that for the craft. If you have embroidery floss, which is usually pretty thin, it's like this, you can use that just so you get a sense of the motions that you need to have. Do it in a pinch. If you have thread, you can do it with thread. It's going to be a lot more frustrating doing it with thread, but you can, and just so you understand the technique of it, okay? Otherwise, you can just enjoy the event, watch it, and then when you get a chance to have the yarn, you can do it then. So while folks are getting themselves set up and making sure they have their yarn or whatever material they're going to use, Mark, do you want to tell us about some important values that we associate with people who are homeless?
Sure. Some of the important values that some of the homeless people share are kindness and being charitable to each other. A lot of times that they share food with each other, they share resources. They kind of come together like a community to try to help each other out through hard times. Whenever, let's say, an organization gives them food, they tell them about that organization. Whenever they find like a place to stay, they also share that with each other, you know, to help each other along.
It makes sense too, because in my experience, there's a fast food chain by me, and oftentimes when I go past it, there's a few homeless folks who are there. And I'm always like, you know, curious about these, you know, homeless folks that are there. And sometimes I'll overhear the conversation and they're actually talking about the resources, or they're sharing something in that moment. Like, oh, I have some of this, why don't you have it? So yeah, definitely this kind of interesting sense of community. Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's really useful that they have this sense of community as well, because the likelihood of, especially given the precarious state that somebody who's homeless is in, the likelihood that they're actually going to be a victim of a crime is 10 times that of somebody who's not homeless, which is, you know, staggering really to think about it. So it's really important that they're resilient and that they share their resources. Yeah, great point.
Exactly. And we kind of see them as visible, but kind of they're visible as say some of an eyesore, but to them they kind of feel like they're invisible because a lot of people are kind of walking by them and sometimes pretend not to see them, you know, and they kind of feel like a lot of their dignity is lost in that because they're kind of the people that are the unseen, the unrecognized, and unnoticed. And it has a really big impact on their self-esteem.
That's an excellent point and very, very well said. Let us take a check-in here. I think our crafters might be ready for us to move on to the next step. So normally knitting needles would be used, and knitting needles come in all kinds of sizes. So just to point out, here are two very, very different sized knitting needles, right? You can see how long they are at the end of the knitting needles. It tells you what size it is. So the smallest one I have is a size 3.75, and the biggest one I have on me right now is a size 15. And so depending on the type of yarn you use and the thickness of it, all those different, but most importantly, the thickness of it, you're going to use a different needle, and also kind of what you want it to look like. In the end, you may use a different size needle. On the skein itself is going to be a wrapper, and on that wrapper, it will tell you, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it will tell you something about that yarn and what it should be. I think it's a bit blurry, but that yarn and what it tells you about the needles and various really important information, including what that yarn is made out of. So there's wool yarn, there's acrylic yarn, there's all kinds of materials. So we're not going to go into that now because you can easily find that information to translate that online. But I just wanted to make you aware just quick that the knitting needles are related to the size of the yarn, and you would be able to tell more about that information, as well as how much yarn you need, how many skeins you need, through that information that's on that on the skein itself. Okay, but you'll have to look up online how to interpret it. I just wanted to let you know that was a thing. Also, you really don't need a knitting needle. You could kind of knit with like chopsticks or anything long and thin. But knitting needles help because of the point. That's kind of helpful. But I will say that since we're doing the finger technique, using the technique your folks are going to learn today, I made this scarf yesterday. So just to get you a sense of what you can accomplish with the technique, this is just from yesterday. So it's a bit thin because I have small hands, so it's a bit thin, but it'll still keep me nice and warm because it's long. So it's a great technique.
Now, wait a minute. How long did that take you?
That's a good question. I don't think it took me an hour. Can you believe it?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it took me an hour. No, it's knitting is for folks who like kind of repetitive. A lot of people like knitting because it's a repetitive motion, and it's very mesmerizing in a lot of ways. You just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over. So it's really relaxing and meditative almost. Mm-hmm. And of course, the bigger the thing you're going to make is, it'll take longer. The smaller the yarn, it'll take longer as well. Two caveats. I know everybody's eager to get started, but I want to mention two caveats before we start. One is, as we're doing it, it's hard to pull tight because we're not used to these motions on our hands. So to the extent that you can, the tighter you can pull things, like making it close. Just to show you, like if you can pull something tighter on your finger, that's better than it being loose. Okay, so that's one caveat. Okay, and as you do it, that'll be more familiar to you, that you'll get used to the motion. Second is, this is a thin yarn, and so it's not really, really thin, but it's pretty thin compared to what I'm using here. And just to give you a sense, this is the one here. This is the one that I used for what I'm wearing around my neck. So you see that's so much thicker than the yarn that you folks got in the kit, right? So since it's thin and we're using our fingers in place of the needles, essentially, in place of the knitting needle, there's going to be lots of holes in what you make, okay? So it's going to be a very holy thing. that you make. I don't want you to be worried about that, okay? Because when you do the yarn, you're going to get a thicker yarn to work with, okay? And when you use a thicker yarn, there's no holes in it, okay? If, by the way, you can't see the close-up on me, I will try to make sure I do it from both cameras. So this is the Holy yarn, but you may want to slide your screen to see if there's another view of what I'm doing. But I'll try to remember to put it in both. So let's see. At the beginning, it's going to seem very complicated, but what you will find out over time is that actually you're doing the exact same motion over and over and over again, right from the beginning. Okay. So it will seem very complicated. Do not get too frustrated. We are going to get you through this, and let's get started. I want us to take our hands and take our yarn. And I'm like Robbie, I'm a little hot in here too, so I'm going to take my beautiful scarf off. If I do compliment myself, I'm going to take my scarf off to give me a little less heat as well. But I want you to find one end. You've taken your kit out, your yarn out of your kit. I want you to find one end of your yarn. Try not to tangle it up as you're doing it. If you do, you definitely want to take the time now. So I've got a little knot in here. You definitely want to take the time now to go ahead and take out any knots that might happen, that might have happened. So make sure you've got a nice loose string. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put our thumb, we're going to hold the short end of our string with our thumb. Okay, so you're holding the short end of the string with your thumb. Between your thumb and like just below your pointer finger. Okay. And now I'm going to show you the movement first. And I'm going to show it to you again in the second camera. And then I'm going to walk you through how to do it. Okay. So first we're wrapping around one finger, two finger, three finger, four finger. That's what you're going to do. Okay. I'm going to do it on the close-up camera. One. And then, wrap it around once, wrap it around the other finger, next finger, next finger. Okay. So that's how we're going to do it. And what you'll see on the inside, and I'm going to take my ring off just so it's not distracting. Okay. But what you're going to see on the inside is that you have one kind of, I'm going to call it a row, one row of yarn. Okay, one row of yarn. So I'm going to walk you through that. So you have your, I'm going to do it twice, one in the close-up, one in the far away. I'm doing the far away now. Finger over, thumb over this yarn. Okay, put your hand towards you, pull the string behind your hand, and you're going to just wrap your first, your pointer finger around. Okay, that's first step is hold it, thumb there, and then wrap that right around. Okay, so from looking at the palm of your hand, you see just the one line. You're then going to repeat that movement with the rest of the fingers on your hand. Okay, until you get all four fingers. You're not using your thumb for this. So here, I'll do it again. Wrap that around. Second one, third one, fourth one. If you can get that, you've got the rest of this craft down. Okay. Anybody have any questions at this point? How are we doing?
Sounds like it's awkward in the beginning. It's awkward
It's-
in the very beginning, and then you get a rhythm.
That's exactly what it is. It is awkward in the beginning, then you get a rhythm. That is exactly what it is. Once you do get your rhythm down, you're going to go, but you're going to leave about a hand's length left in the yarn that you have. So if there's no other questions with it, I'm going to go on to our next step. Okay. And again, you want to keep this kind of tight. So before we do the next step, if you want to pull, okay, you can kind of pull the yarn on this side, pull the yarn on that side, so it's kind of a bit tighter. The whole time you want to hold with your thumb that end of the string. Okay, now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to do it in reverse. Okay, so the same thing, but in reverse. Okay, so we're going to make another wrap around the pinky. I'm going to do that again. So you're wrapping the pinky again. Okay, now this is a little bit tricky. Okay, is you're going to go the opposite way on the second finger. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So you're wrapping your pinky. Okay, and then because if you tried to wrap your what finger is that? Ring finger. That way, you'd end up with 3 lines, and you don't want 3 lines. You never want more than 2. You can't do it that way. So you're going to wrap your pinky and then go the other way around your ring finger. Okay, I'm going to do it on the close-up. You're going to wrap your pinky and then go the other way to wrap your ring finger. Once you do that, it's the same on the other fingers. Okay, and then you end up, if you've done it right, you end up with two rows on your fingers. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time because this is the hardest part. Believe me, this is the hardest part of this activity. And then you're going to be amazed how easy it is from here. Okay, so I'll do it on the big screen, so to say. Here we have, this is where we left off. We're going to wrap it around. This is hard to do backwards to show you. Wrap it around the pinky. Okay, we can't wrap it around the front of this one because to do that, we'd have to either wrap this again or undo our wrap that we just did. So we're just going to wrap our pinky and then go the other way around our pointer finger, or a ring finger, and then follow that way around the other 2 fingers. If you've got that, the rest of this is easy, absolutely easy. 2 caveats I want to let you know about though, and then I want to hear more from Mark is, not 2 caveats, but what I want to let you know is that the tighter the better, okay, and the closer together the better. So the closer these are together, the better, and the tighter, so you can kind of pull your ends every once in a while to make it a little tight, the better. Having said that, higher on your fingers is better. If you can get it above your knuckles, that's the way to go. Okay, unfortunately, that's really hard to do because it will fall off more easily that way. Okay, so try to get it above your knuckles if you can. Maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but as we do it, if you can do it a little bit higher on your hand, you're going to be better off. And you're going to find out why when we do the next step. But we're going to take a break for a second while our knitters just make sure they've got where we are. So you should be seeing, if you've done it right, you should be seeing 2 rows on your fingers. And just hold on to that for a minute, or make sure you get to that point. And in the meantime, Mark, I'm wondering if you can tell us about some names that we might associate with people who are homeless.
Okay, so one of the names that comes to mind is Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter partnered with the Habitats of Humanities to help build affordable homes for first-time home buyers. We also had President Johnson, who created the Department of Urban Development, which is still around today. We also had some actors that were who also were known for helping out homeless people. Actor Robin Williams, he used to insist that a lot of the people that were on a contract on his sets were homeless. So he gave he got some employment for a lot of the homeless.
That's impressive. That's great. And it's particularly lovely. I mean, any of us would want a chance, right? If we were in that situation, we would want a chance like that. And the situation that some people who are homeless end up in are just, you can only imagine what their situation was before then that might have ended up bringing them to that state. I know, for example, when I was looking stuff up on this topic, that Ella Fitzgerald was homeless as a teenager because she was coming from an abuse at home. And given the choice in her situation, that was actually the better choice for her, from her perspective. And then there's a movie about Chris Gardner. He's a businessman, but he used to be homeless. Right. And he became a businessman, as I understand. He worked on the stock market.
Yes.
And there was a whole movie about that.
Yes, him and his young child. They were homeless for a long time.
What was
I
that
don't
called
know
again, the
what was-
movie?
What was the name of the movie? Does anybody know?
Um,
I don't
it's
remember.
right-
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of
That's it.
Happiness.
Yes.
There we go. There we go. Excellent. Thank you for letting us know that.
Yes. So it doesn't,
Robert
those stories don't
Williams
always. I'm sorry.
also worked with comic relief too. So
Oh, that's right. That's right. Comic Relief did do some outreach for the homeless. That was part of what they did, right?
It was like in the 80s and 90s, right? Or is it still happening? I don't think it is. But it was a bunch of comedians in New York, right? Comic Relief, it was called.
So I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look it up, but it's something to check out. Thank
Robin
you for that.
Williams. Yeah.
So Mark, also, what were you saying? I think you're going to say
Oh,
something.
I was getting ready to say that, not all those stories turn out that successful. One person comes to mind is Alec Forney. He was a gender nonconforming kid, and he was homeless from the age of 13. And unfortunately, he was found shot dead at the age of 22. And he was a big radical voice for the homeless and the LGBT community.
Yeah, the Ali Forney Center is up here near me in Harlem.
Yes, I've
where-
taken a number of homeless people there, young
Yeah.
homeless.
And I've brought like, clothes and old kitchen stuff and, food, whatever I can donate goes usually there.
Yeah, that's a great community. I've
Yeah.
met a number of homeless youth in the Port Authority area, and we've taken them to that homeless shelter.
Hmm.
They do wonderful work there.
That's
They
great.
do. They're lovely. Every time I've gone there, the people in there are just really great.
Yes,
And
they are.
they're so excited. They're so grateful. Like something that I haven't, worn or used in 6 months or a
Right.
year or whatever. It's been in my closet and I bring it to them. And they're like, whoa, this bag
Yeah.
or this, whatever. They're like, this is great. This is so cool. Or this old DVD, they're like, yes. Cause
Mhm.
they must have a DVD player
Yeah,
at this place. But stuff that I'm over it and they're very grateful. So that's
Yes.
nice.
yeah, they
That's
provide
great.
a lot of shelter and a lot of counseling that the youth need now.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's great, and it's wonderful that it was named after them. That's fantastic. Kind of living that legacy and making sure it goes on. And it's because of situations like that that they experience that it's so important that we do an event like this, right? So that we help to understand this issue, help to teach about this issue, and know more ourselves about it. Well, thank you for sharing about those important people. And now I think we're ready for the third part. And once you know this, the rest of the craft is easy. Okay. So
Quick question. Did
Yeah.
you double over? You took 2 fingers and then went back 1?
So it's 1. So I'm starting from the very beginning for those, if anybody came late, starting at the very beginning. Okay. Yarn, short end of the yarn with the thumb holding it. Wrap once from the back around. You end up in the back again. Twice. 3, third finger, 4th finger. Okay. And from this side, what you see is just 1 line on each from your palm. And then you're going to go back around your pinky once. And then reverse it for your ring finger, middle finger, and pointer finger. And you should see two rows in the back. Does that answer your question?
Indubitably. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, so now this is the part where you're going to realize why you don't want it too far down on your hand, okay? So what you're going to do, and you have to do this slowly and gently the first time, because what you can inevitably end up doing is throwing off the wrong string, and then you have to start at the beginning. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out, I'm going to show you on the close-up first, pull out the bottom string, okay, or the bottom yarn, and you're going to put it over your pinky. Okay, now, Yeah, and then you're going to do that with your next finger, and then the next one, and then the next one. And the farther, and then you can pull it a little bit at the end. Don't pull it too much, but put it a little bit to tighten it, okay? If you have it really far down on your finger, then you've got to pull it from all the way down here over up there, in which case you're going to loosen it, and it's not going to look as great if you loosen it. Okay, so I'm gonna do this again. I'm starting over. I've got my first line, got my second line, excuse me, it's got my second line. Okay, I'll do it on the big screen, as it were. Okay, again, easier if you have it above your knuckle, but anywhere you have it is fine. You're going to take your lower one, put it on top, always the lower one, pull it on top.
The big screen is a little bit to your right. Big screen is a little bit to your right. Even more.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, and again, put it over, and then last one, you're going to pull it over. Okay, and then pull the string a little bit on the end. Anybody have any questions about that part? I'll do it again. I'm going back to the original. Second thing I need to do. Now I have, you can see 2 rows across my hand. And then I'm just taking the bottom one, pulling it over the top one. This is the hard part. Second one over, third one over. Whoop. Still holding on to the string, otherwise it pulls out like it just did for me. Holding on to that end of the short end of the string with your thumb. Pull over the last one. Okay. If you accidentally pulled off the thing, one of the loops, it may be at this point just easier to start over than it would be for you to try to fix it at this point, but it's up to you. So what you're going to do is, as you do that, what's going to happen is you're building this going off the back of your hand. Okay, so you're only ever going to have 1 row or 2 rows on this side of your palm. And then in the back, you're going to see the rest of the yarn start going, what you're creating to start going down your hand. So you'll see this, or maybe 2 rows, but the back is going to be something like this, that's going all the way down your hand as you make it grow. So you're going to then, actually, before we even, I want to make sure that you've got that part, okay? So essentially, you're going to be back at the beginning. So I'm going to keep showing that in here. I do want to tell a joke. My son came up with a joke, so I want to tell you a joke. He said, "What do you call an evil knitter's evil plan?" An evil knitter's evil plan. Anybody want to try? You can just say, what? What do you call it?
What is it?
What is it?
An evil skein.
Oh,
That's funny.
skein is a new word. I didn't know the word skein.
Yes.
So I should have, because I made note when you said it the first time. So I should have gotten that. I should have known that. it's
See,
gonna be
there
evil
you go.
skein.
A little knitting humor for you all.
Who
Not
knew?
to change the
Knitting
topic.
humor.
Quick question, Stacey. What
Yes.
do you think is the 3 most leading causes for homelessness?
You know, this one, I do know the answer. I did my research. I do know the answer to this one, and this is not a joke. Although I can understand you wanted to change the topic after that corny joke, but this is not a joke. And it's number 1 is actually, and people might be surprised at this, affordable housing is the number 1 cause of homelessness. Number 2 is unemployment. And then number 3 is mental illness.
That's correct. That is correct. I bet a lot of people assume that mental illness was a leading cause.
Yeah, I would have, if I hadn't done my research and somebody asked me, I might have thought that as well. And did you know that in one study in Florida, they found that the cost of incarcerating a homeless person was $31,000 per year.
Wow.
And as it turns out, that's the same amount of money it would cost to pay them a full-time salary,
Wow.
which would, of course, that would then help them get a job, get a shelter, right? If they had a
Yeah.
full-time salary.
That seems like it would be a better use for that money.
Yeah, indeed. I think you are very, very right, Mark. I have a question for you. Can you name an animated Disney movie from the 1950s that has a homeless main character?
I'm gonna go with Lady and the Tramp.
Yes, you are right. And that name Tramp, we don't kind of use that anymore.
No.
It's kind of an obsolete name for somebody who's homeless. But it's kind of interesting that basically, essentially, the synonym for homeless made it into the title of a Disney movie. But instead of portraying it kind of real life, it's very much a kind of what they say, Disney-fied version of homelessness. It's a very kind of positive representation associating homelessness with like freedom and fun and kind of a carefree attitude. Entertaining and endearing for kids, perhaps.
I wonder if tramp really meant, I don't know, but I wonder if it meant like somebody who likes being like a free, wild, roaming around and like wild spirit type. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's interesting. I don't know the etymology of it. As I don't know the answer to that. I think it's probably like one version of homelessness. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
And it could be. I just remember those cartoons back in the day where they had the man with the the kind of that suit with the patches, and he had this little stick with his little pack bag on it.
Handkerchief, hobos.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. I think we're ready for the next step. If anybody had any questions at this point, they've had plenty of time to ask in the chat, and we do have an event to get moving on. So we're going to do our fourth step. So at this point, you should have, you can pull your ends a little bit. You should still be back now to having one line across, but now you're starting to see some development in the back of your hand. Okay. What you're going to find is that you're now just going to repeat steps 2 and 3 that we did before. Okay, so you remember what those were? Oh, remember what those were? You're going to take your string, your yarn, wrap it around, wrap it around, wrap it around, wrap it around. From your palm, you see 2 lines. Oops. Right? Somehow that did not work out. Sorry, wrapped it around wrong. Let's try that again. Wrap it around. Oh, yeah, there we go. Wrap it around. Nope. Wrap it around, wrap it around, wrap it around, wrap it around. So, and really you just keep doing it until you can figure out, okay, I have 2 lines, then I have 2 rows, I'm set. Okay. Once you do that, you can imagine what the next step is. It's the same thing you just did. You're going to keep going. Okay. So you're going to pull that bottom yarn over the top, tighten it up a little bit, pull these down a little bit, and you're going to do the exact same thing again, going backwards, right? So we remember we go around the pinky. Sorry, yeah, we go around the pinky and then back around the ring finger. Yep. Around the pinky, around the ring finger, around the middle finger, and around the pointer finger. Same thing. Push it down a little bit so these are kind of closer together, and lower one, pull up the loop over the top one on each finger. And there you go. And you're going to see as you do that, that the back keeps growing. So as far as what we're doing, you're just going to keep doing that. Okay. Keep doing that. And I used this scarf that I showed you. I used about a skein and a half. Normally a scarf might take 3. A finger scarf is about half the width of a regular scarf, I would say. So you're not going to necessarily use as much yarn. So yeah, so you're going to keep going with that. Let me see. When you're to do a scarf, though, I just want to mention you're going to do one additional step, because you need to connect when you run out of string on what you're using. You're going to need to connect this string with the next piece of yarn. And all you're going to do for that is literally, you're going to be shocked at how easy this is. You're going to tie them in a knot. Who would have thought it, right? You're just going to tie them in a knot. And maybe you're thinking, and tie it really, really tight. Okay, so it doesn't come out. And then, although I probably shouldn't have done that right now, but that's fine. Tie them really tight. And then these ends are going to work their way into the scarf, and you're just going to tuck those ends in so that they're not like sticking out of the scarf. And if they ever come untucked, you can just tuck them in again. So that's the only difference between what we're doing and if you needed to make a scarf that had multiple skeins that you needed to use for it. So let's see. Yeah, I think, Mark, I'm ready for any other insights you have as we're finishing this. It's really what we're doing from here on in, everyone. But from here on in is you're just doing that same movement. So I'm going to keep alternating, showing it to you in the big screen and the small screen, but you're wrapping it around and then pulling the bottom up and over. And keep doing that until you have about a hand's length of the yarn left. And then I'll tell you how to close it up.
And as you knitters are finishing up, I just want to make sure that you guys know that there is a way that we can help this country, how we're facing this homeless epidemic. So first, in 2022, President Biden released a federal strategic plan called All In, which has 4 goals related to preventing and ending homelessness. This is also a particular strategy that may want to know for permanent, to get people from homelessness to permanent housing. What it is, it's an alternative solution to end homelessness.
Thank you.
And focus
I was going to ask, thanks so much.
And accessible permanent housing and coordinated services such as financial assistance and mental health treatment.
Well, I must say coordinated and permanent sounds like a good plan. There's got to be a better option for unhoused people than like living on the streets, right? And then if you've seen, we don't really have them too much in New York, but there's these tent cities where maybe like under bridges, you see like a whole bunch of tents, maybe when you know, depending on what cities you travel to or where you're from. I saw that for the first time. I went to New Orleans, and I saw, and I really hadn't seen it like that before. And you may see homeless on benches in public parks or in town squares.
Yeah, and now that benches are not even an option anymore because a lot of them are being taken away.
Well, wait, what do you mean they're not an option anymore?
There's something called the hostile architecture, which is called defensive design. It refers to that there are intentionally implemented into the city town, planning designated significantly to deter homeless from sleeping on the benches. So what they have now is that they have the police that are going around and kind of removing homeless people from benches and in public places because they're kind of being considered as like an eyesore.
I was not familiar with those terms. Hostile architecture.
I've seen those. You've seen them, like in the subway. They recently put up in some of the stations, there's like these leaning benches. Like it's not even, you can't even really sit there. Like even for like, I don't know, a pregnant person or somebody that just needs to take a rest, you can only lean on it now. There's no sitting, so to prevent lying down, they'll add like handlebars, like armrest kind of things, like in the middle of the seat, or spiky things under bridges.
I've seen this. Yes. Yes.
And so they're like designing things to make it hurt, to make it impossible.
Yeah, so that you can't be comfortable if you were laying down. That's I've seen this like seat dividers, but so that it's like a bump between each seat. But I never realized that that's probably yet another version of what you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. Let me show you how to close the scarf. Some of you might not be done with that part yet. And we have a little bit more time. Maybe trying to think. Yeah, we can keep going a little bit. Let me show you one more time how we're doing it. So so we've got the one row on the finger. Notice as I'm doing it, it's coming closer to the top because I naturally am realizing that it's so much easier for me to do it when it's close to the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you see my 2 lines, right? My 2 rows, and then bottom row goes over for each of those fingers. Tighten it a little bit, pull it down, and you see on the back, it's getting nice and long. Now, I didn't mention this because we talked about a scarf, making a scarf, but there is a secret craft you're going to finish by what we're doing today. And that is to say, it depends how bold of a fashionista you are, what you're going to be able to make, in theory, the length of the material you have could be enough once you seal it all up to make a choker necklace out of it.
Mhm.
So obviously you wouldn't have these strings hanging down that I have here, but you could wear it as a very interesting choker if you happen to like the color that we sent you. I know we sent some reds and blues and all kinds of interesting colors. The other thing you can do with the one you finish up today, you can actually make it as a bracelet. So if where you are happens to be like, this is probably, the one I'm doing right now is probably long enough for me to be an interesting bracelet. So you can use it as a bracelet. So that way the craft you're making today is actually its own finished, kind of hidden surprise finished product. So, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm down to the end of this material that I have, or anyway, that I've got enough because I want this to be a bracelet. Okay. And I'm going to finish us off. This is the easiest part of this craft. So for those of you who are still working on it, and you might be saying like, no, don't do it yet. I'm not at that part yet. Take a break from what you're doing for a second and just watch, because this is so easy. You really don't even, you'll remember it if you just watch me one time. Okay. And I'm not going to be able to do it twice easily, because I'd have to do the whole thing all over again. So definitely watch me now do this. Okay, so take a break. And actually, I'm going to do it. I think if I do it over here, you can see me on both screens. Trying to get the right angle so you can see me on both screens. Okay, I'm going to do it like that. So you're going to take the loop. So right now you've got, let's say you need to have just one row on your hand. One row on your hand. You're going to take one loop and then put it right onto your, so you're taking the loop off of your pinky and you're putting it onto your ring finger. You're then going to treat that like the step where you just pulled the bottom over the top one. Okay, now you've got one row on just 3 fingers. It's like a little piggy's kind of a mindset. This little piggy went to market, and now we're going to have the other little piggy go home. So here you go. We're going to put the next one. I'm showing this on the bigger screen. The next loop, I'm going to put that one over my middle finger, and then take the bottom one off, pull it over the top. Okay. Okay. And let's see. You can imagine what we're doing for the next step, right? Going back on the smaller screen, try to get it in both. You're taking the one loop, putting it over the next finger's loop, and then take the bottom, because now you have 2 on it. You're taking the bottom one and pulling it over. And now, and you can kind of tighten these a little bit as you're doing it. Now you just have your whole, what you've made. Maybe it's a bracelet, maybe it's a choker, maybe you've made a scarf at this point. You have that whole thing, just one little loop, okay? What we're going to do for that is we're going to take the loose end. We're going to take the loose end and we're going to pull it through that loop. Okay, so take it off of your finger. You're taking that loop off of your finger and take your loose string and just pull it through that. Okay. And then now in my case, I very silly did not bring out a scissor for me. And I tied my end, as you remember before, to demonstrate that. So I can't, I'm going to have this thing sticking out like this. You won't. You're going to pull out your entire string. okay, till you get to the end of it. Okay, in my case, my end is tied to this. You're gonna pull that entire string out, and then you're going to use the long end, and you're going to pull it through. Really, you can take any part that's nearby, okay, from this, but basically you want to tie that again, pull it through. You're making a knot. That's all you're doing. You're making a knot, pull it through again. Okay, there you go. And then it's going to be, you'll be able to cut off the extra. Leave enough. If you're doing a bracelet or a choker, you want to leave enough so that you can actually tie it. So you'll leave a lot more. You have this end also, and then that's what you're going to use to tie it. And look, I've got a nice choker. What do you think, Rob?
I like it. I think it's cool.
And then if you want a bracelet, you can do it as a bracelet as well, right?
And this technique, I mean, you could make anything. You can make a hat. I mean, you would have
Well,
to shape it and you'd have to learn, but you could in theory.
Well, I'll tell you, while folks are closing up, I'll tell you, I do have a prop I wanted to show you. This is what you need to make a hat.
Oh, okay.
So there is, so some, this is very entry level knitting, Robbie. You're kind of above,
Okay.
above the pace scale of this technique that we learned. Once you start getting into, maybe there's somebody out there who knows how to do it. I don't, but you can get this kind of equipment, and basically instead of your fingers, you're using this. But it's the same motion essentially, and you can make a hat. And at the end of that, you basically just tie it like we just did that almost. So yeah, so now you've learned how to finish off the scarf. You could also add tassels. I'll just mention very quickly, you can also add tassels to it, like I did on mine, if you're making a scarf. And this is the quickest thing I'm going to show you how to do. Cut a piece about twice as long as how you want the dangle to come off, okay? And so this is if you're making a scarf and you want tassels on it, and you're going to fold it over, okay, with that loop. You're then going to take you're going to put this loop through the hole at the end of the scarf. Just for argument's sake, I'm just taking this loop here on my scarf. You're going to put your bent end through it, open up that hole, and pull the loose ends through the other side. You've done that before, probably on something. And there's a tassel, right? And you can cut it if you want it shorter, longer. That's the easy way to make the tassel. For those of you who didn't catch that, don't worry, you're going to get the video. And you can find lots of other ways, I'm sure, to make tassels as well if you start getting into this and you love this. So what else do we want to talk about? I think, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that really scarves are made out of so many different materials. Lots of fun things you can do with it. And the thickness matters. The thicker it is, the bigger the scarf is going to be, usually. So keep that in mind. But these should keep us nice and warm and cozy. So I hope you enjoy not only learning this technique, but now you have either a choker or a bracelet. And now you know how to make a finger knit scarf. That you can even add tassels to. You can go pick out your yarn in lots of wonderful colors. Robbie, do you want to talk us out?
Yes. So I'm just going to say thank you, especially to Mark and Stacy for walking us through this topic that not a lot of people like to talk about, and this craft that ended up being a super interesting technique that I think you maybe could apply to, a potential new hobby that people could have. And thank you everybody for joining. This was really interesting. I hope we've started the conversation. I hope we can keep trying, right? Keep trying to talk about this and don't walk by, don't treat unhoused people like they're invisible, because it hurts. Like it hurts me when I do it. Sometimes I'm in a rush and I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. But then I have like a moment where I'm like, I'm mad at myself, So anyway, we will send you the video and the infographic and a follow-up email. Feel free to tag us in your finished products or email us photos and we'll share them. We encourage you to share our infographic and video to help educate others about this topic. And, tell your friends to come to our next Craftivism event or our next movie night. We do all these different things. to raise awareness and to get together and to have fun and to stay informed. So research your local political candidates, find out their positions on, homelessness services. You can make an impact in a person's life if you volunteer, donate items at homeless centers or shelters. We recommend calling ahead to make sure you can make the maximum impact. And let's see, we're going to also send you our brief survey of what you thought of the event today. So please take the time to respond. Your feedback is important to us. And our next online Craftivism adult crafting event is about celebrating LGBTQ pride. It's taking place Thursday, February 23rd. We'll be teaching you how to embroider a tote bag. Look for and learn about more on our website, informyourcommunity.org. We have so many events there for you to check out. Please consider donating to cover the cost of the materials and shipping if you can afford it. It helps keep our events free for those who can't. And thank you all so much for coming. We're at time.
Thank you,
Susie and
everybody.
Mark.
Mark, thank you so much. Robbie, thank you.